Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. That's what they told me when my grandfather vanished inside the Great Pyramid 40 years ago. But they were wrong. The mystery wasn't meant to stay hidden. It was waiting to be uncovered. I remember that night like it was yesterday. I was 8 years old, sitting on the floor, watching him pack his old leather bag. His hands were steady, but his eyes held something I didn't understand back then, determination mixed with fear. He turned to me, pressed a pocket watch into my hands and said, "Time isn't what we think it is, and the pyramids, they're not tombs, they're doorways." That was the last time I saw him. Hours later, deep inside the Great Pyramid, something impossible happened. A flash of blue light split the desert sky. The ground trembled, and my grandfather was gone. The military called it a power surge. Archaeologists insisted he must have wandered off and gotten lost in the labyrinth of tunnels. But I knew better. The watch he gave me, it wasn't just keeping time. It was counting down. For 40 years it sat in a drawer unmoving. Then last week it started ticking again, the hands spinning faster than they should, the metal warm against my skin. At the same time, something else began happening. Strange energy readings beneath the Great Pyramid. Unexplained power surges near ancient sites across the world. And a name I'd never heard before kept appearing in classified documents. Phase 0. My grandfather once said history was a lie, that the truth about the pyramids was buried beneath centuries of deception. And now, after decades of silence, his disappearance is pointing me towards something far bigger than I ever imagined. Because if the pyramids really are doorways, then the question isn't just where he went, it's what is about to come through. The pyramids weren't meant to preserve the dead. They were built to preserve time itself. That truth had been hidden for thousands of years, buried beneath layers of deception. But now the pieces were falling into place. And I wasn't the only one searching for answers. Dr. Rashid Hassan had been chasing this mystery for years. His twin sister Nadia had vanished when they were children, gone in the blink of an eye, right in front of him. The official reports claimed it was an accident, but Rashid knew better. The energy surge that took her matched the exact pattern of the anomaly that took my grandfather. And then there was Dr. Olivia Reyes, one of the world's leading minds in artificial intelligence. She had built a system capable of detecting patterns in time itself, but her research had come at a cost. Exposure to the same energy signatures we were investigating had begun changing her at a cellular level. She was running out of time. The only hope of stopping her body from unraveling lay within the very mystery we were trying to solve. The deeper we dug, the more the evidence pointed to a single truth. History was a lie. Ancient texts described the pyramids as tombs, final resting places for great rulers. But Rashid had discovered something shocking. Hidden inscriptions that had never been translated. They spoke of a secret chamber, not meant for the dead, but for something else. Something that wasn't supposed to be found. And then there was Queen Merneith. Officially, she was one of the first female rulers of Egypt. But unofficially, she was something more. She was the first human to ever communicate with the builders. Her star maps told a story far older than Egypt itself. A story that suggested humanity wasn't alone when civilization began. That our ancestors had been given knowledge, technology, far beyond their time. And that this knowledge had been hidden within certain bloodlines, encoded in their very DNA. Then Rashid found something that changed everything. A message. It had been buried in fragmented historical records, hidden beneath layers of conflicting translations. But when Olivia ran it through her system, the meaning became clear. The message wasn't ancient, it was new. And it wasn't written in hieroglyphs, it was written in a language no one should have been able to read. Nadia's handwriting. She was alive, but not in this time. The realization hit like a shockwave. She had been sending messages back through history, using the only medium that could withstand time itself. Stone. The carvings, the symbols, the hidden texts, they weren't just records of the past. They were warnings sent from the future. Then my grandfather's watch began ticking faster, the countdown accelerating, the energy readings beneath the pyramids growing stronger. We thought the builders had left, but what if they never did? The deeper we searched, the clearer it became. The pyramids weren't just monuments, they weren't just doorways, they were keys. And I was the one who had to turn the lock. We stood before the entrance to a chamber that, according to every archaeological record, didn't exist. No maps, no blueprints, no mention in any historical text, but it was there, hidden in plain sight, buried beneath centuries of stone and secrecy. At first, nothing happened. The door remained sealed, like it had been for thousands of years. Then, the watch my grandfather gave me started vibrating. The numbers on its face weren't just counting down anymore. They were shifting, rewriting themselves in symbols I had never seen before. And then I felt it, a pull, like an invisible thread winding through my bones, drawing me forward. Without thinking, I reached out and placed my hand against the stone. The air changed. Symbols lit up beneath my palm, glowing with an impossible light. The stone didn't move, it dissolved, as if it had never been solid in the first place. Dr. Rashid Hassan was the first to speak, his voice barely above a whisper. These aren't just walls, they're thresholds. What lay beyond defied explanation. The chamber was vast, impossibly vast, as if it existed outside the limits of physical space. Markings lined the walls, pulsating with energy. But they weren't Egyptian. They weren't from any known civilization. They were something else, something older. Dr. Olivia Reyes activated her AI system, scanning the symbols, searching for patterns. Within seconds, it found a match, hidden deep within a classified military database. A file from 1983. A secret expedition. A discovery buried by those in power. A video feed flickered to life, old and grainy, but unmistakable. A team of scientists and soldiers stood exactly where we were standing now. And in the center of the room, bathed in the same eerie glow, was my grandfather. But he wasn't alone. A voice crackled through the speakers, distorted, inhuman. The cycle begins again. The military had lied. They hadn't just found this place, they had made contact. And whatever they had spoken to, it had been waiting for us to return. Then Olivia gasped. She wasn't looking at the screen anymore. She was looking at the walls. The symbols, the ones pulsing with energy, were changing, rearranging themselves in real time. They weren't just ancient markings, they were a message. And they weren't written in any language of this world. They were written in my grandfather's handwriting. My watch pulsed faster. The floor beneath us trembled. We weren't just unlocking the past, we were waking something up. Time was unraveling. Everywhere we looked, reality itself seemed to be shifting. People reported seeing things that hadn't happened yet, visions of the future flashing before their eyes. Others swore they remembered events that never existed, as if history itself was being rewritten in real time. Rashid's hands were shaking as he stared at his latest discovery. It was a new message from his sister, Nadia. But it wasn't just a note, it was coordinates. A specific location and time carved into stone thousands of years ago. She was alive, but she wasn't in our time. She was trapped in ancient Egypt, sending messages through the only medium that could survive for millennia. Olivia, meanwhile, was running out of time. The exposure to the builder's energy was changing her at a cellular level. She had found a possible cure, a way to undo the damage, but there was a cost. To save herself, she would have to rewrite a key moment in history, undoing something that had already happened. If she did that, she might survive. But she could also break time itself. The military was fracturing. Some wanted to control the technology we had uncovered, believing it could be weaponized. Others believed it was too dangerous, that the only way to save humanity was to destroy everything. And then there was the real war. The builders had left something behind, something more than technology. And now the dark matter entities that lived between moments were beginning to break through. Every shift in time, every unlocked doorway had weakened the barrier. They were no longer just watching, they were coming. The builders had left humanity a choice. Embrace what we were meant to become, or stop the collapse and preserve the timeline as it was. But the time for choice was running out. The pyramids around the world began activating in unison, sending out signals, warnings, messages, or maybe a final call for help. The stars were aligning exactly as the ancient maps predicted. And then the countdown stopped. The watch my grandfather had given me, the one that had been counting down for decades, its hands froze. We had run out of time, and the last barrier between past and future had just shattered. The world was shifting. Every ancient site connected to the builder's network was waking up. The pyramids, the stone circles, The forgotten temples buried under centuries of sand and secrecy. They weren't just monuments, they were beacons. And now, they were sending a warning. The military had lost control. Their weapon, a device they claimed could stop the convergence, was already primed to fire. But they didn't understand what they were dealing with. This wasn't just about stopping an event. This was about stopping time itself. And if they pulled the trigger, they wouldn't just erase the future. They'd erase everything. Rashid had finally found her, his sister, Nadia. But she was frozen, caught in a suspended moment, trapped in the cracks between time. The only way to save her was to let the convergence happen. But if we did that, the world as we knew it would cease to exist. Then my watch started speaking. Not with words, not with sound, but with memories. Flashes of my grandfather standing in this very chamber 40 years ago. The builder's technology had preserved his consciousness, hidden inside the device he had given me as a child. He had known. He had spent his last moments sealing away something humanity wasn't ready to face. And now his voice echoed in my mind. Time isn't breaking, it's correcting itself. The builders had never left. They had simply merged with us, encoded their knowledge into our very DNA. We weren't their creations, we were their continuation. And now we had to decide. Keep history as it was, safe, familiar, unchanged, or take the step we were always meant to take. Then the chamber walls began shifting. The builder's message revealed its final words. They weren't warning you about us. They were warning us about you. And suddenly I understood. The real threat wasn't what lay beyond the doorways. It was what had been trapped inside. And now that door was about to open. Time no longer felt like something I could measure. It wasn't moving forward, backward, or standing still. It was collapsing in on itself, folding and stretching in ways my mind struggled to comprehend. I stood in the chamber, surrounded by shifting symbols, watching as the walls pulsed with energy. Every marking, every inscription, every forgotten warning was coming alive, rewriting itself in real time. My grandfather's watch, the one I had carried my entire life, was no longer just an object, it was something more. Its hands moved in patterns that didn't make sense, tracing paths beyond time itself. Then it shattered, not into pieces but into light. And in that light I saw him. He had never truly vanished. His consciousness had been preserved, waiting for this exact moment. Waiting for me. His voice echoed through me, though his lips never moved. You were never meant to find me, you were meant to find yourself. The builders never left. They never needed to, because they had become us. Our DNA, our history, our evolution, none of it was random. It was part of a design, a blueprint written into the very fabric of who we are. We weren't just descendants of an ancient civilization, we were its continuation. The next stage of something far greater than we ever imagined. And now the world was changing. Across the globe, ancient sites that had remained dormant for thousands of years began to hum with energy. Stone structures shifted, revealing hidden mechanisms. Light patterns flickered across the sky, messages, signals, or perhaps memories of a past we had long forgotten. Then the first transmission arrived. Not from deep space, not from an alien world, but from Earth. From a future where humanity had already taken the next step. A future where we had become what we were always meant to be. We had spent our entire history searching for the builders, chasing myths, excavating ruins, deciphering fragments of lost knowledge. But the truth was never buried beneath stone, it was buried within us. Now that we knew the truth, only one question remained. What will we become?
Before you go, if you want to be the first to know when we uncover the next buried truth that could affect your community, hit subscribe now and turn on notifications. Our investigations have already saved lives, and your support keeps this vital work going. Don't miss our next revelation. Subscribe now, because what you don't know can hurt you. Join our community of truth seekers today.